And we continue learning Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, continuing Siman Kuf Beis, the halachos of how one is allowed to walk by someone else or sit in the proximity of someone that is davening. We pick it up from Sif Hey. Says the Machaber in Sif Hey, Im Hishlim Tfilasai. If someone has completed his tefillah, his Shemayna Esrei, a very classical case, someone finishes Shemayna Esrei and there's someone else davening behind him. Asr lipsaya shalosh psiyos. You're not allowed to take the 3 steps backwards. Ad sheyigmar misha acharav, until the person behind you finishes Shemayna Esrei as tefillah. Why? Shemya says, because if you take your 3 steps back, or you can I get a masala? What are you doing if you take your 3 steps back? You're walking in front of someone else davening Shemayna Esrei. Was there, and you have to be precise for this. Even if it begins to daven after you began, and that's why you didn't finish, still you have to be precise. Because at the end of the day, he began Shemayna Esrei. So it says the Mishnah Berurah of Katan Yatas, and in reality, this halacha is really just the reality of this halacha is really just playing out the first 4 sifim. And I just realized that we never did the Mishnah Berurahs in Sif Daled. So apologies. Let's hold that halacha. But again, really Sif Daled and Hey are really one halacha. Like we just said, Hey, you're just playing out Daled. So let's go back for a moment. I apologize. And let's read Sif Daled. Also, Laver, can I get a mitzvah? You're not allowed to walk opposite someone who's davening. We took our ba'amois. In front of him, like the case we just spoke about, that if you take your 3 steps backwards, you're walking in front of the person davening behind you. But on the sides, it is allowed. So says the Mishnah Berurah over here, Sevkatan Tes Vav. Asr la'avar. You're not allowed to walk in front of someone davening Shemayna Esrei. What is the reason? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Me'ibnei shemevatal kavanasi, you mess up his kavana. Al yidei zeh via this. And therefore, even if he behind you is davening Kriya Shema, still it is forbidden. Because you are being mafsik between the person davening and the Shechina. So these are the 2 reasons that we keep on talking about. Number 1, your mevatel is kavana, and number 2 is how can you walk within the proximity of the Shechina. So for a moment, let's just look at the Dirshu over here. Oh, the Dirshu is not over here, so let's not look at the Dirshu over here. Let's continue Sif Tez Zayin. Let's continue Sif Tez Zayin. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sif Tez Zayin Lefneim, Ustadim Shalafneim, and the sides are like in front of them. Again, I'll just let me just explain what's bothering me over here. Is again, Sif Daled just taught us you're not allowed to walk in front of someone davening. And the Pashtas, we keep on saying this is the middle of Shemayna Esrei. So these few words in Mishnah Berurah, in which the Mishnah Berurah, again, in Mishnah Berurah Sevkatan Tes Vav, the Mishnah Berurah says, U'lachein Asr, therefore it is forbidden if he is davening Shemayna Esrei. So this is the detail that is slightly bothersome, because therefore it's Asr if you Isaac Az b'Kriya Shema, even if he's davening Kriya Shema, because the question is, we keep on saying that we're referring to someone davening Shemayna Esrei. So what does it mean by Kriya Shema? So 1 second, we don't have the Dirshu in front of us, but let's just have it right here next to me. Give me 1 second. The Dirshu note number 22 over here points out. Very good. He answers my question. He says, if you look at the Chayadam, he says, V'hainu shaha'oiver Isaac b'Kriya Shema. Very good. If I am in the middle of Kriya Shema while I am walking by the guy in the middle of Shemayna Esrei, so maybe one would think that it's not a problem, even on that case. Why? Because I'm saying Shema. So you're saying Shemayna Esrei. Still, there is a problem. Why? Because you're going to be mevatel kava nasai. That is the reason why it is not allowed. Very good. And just to point out, this actually is a critical Dirshu over here. He does say that for different mitzvahs, we're going to allow you. He says, for example, if you are kohen, has to go wash his hands, or if you have to stand up for Berchos Kohanim, the Levi to wash his hands, etc. Avol b'tzteim, Sifkatan Yitzayin, says Mishnah Berurah. V'azeir parshas Chayisara, Alisar, afilu b'tzteim derech arba amos. The Zayir is machmer even on the sides. Lavar v'lamay Sifkatan Yilches, Ratzolaimer. Sheyavrav Yamid Sham V'lo Yilech Lahala K'dei Shlo Yeh Keneged B'neihem, so you're not going to be opposite them. Shekol continues the Mishnah Berurah as we turn over the page over here. Shekol Sheyuchal L'R'oisai, anyone you're able to see. Because again, you're going to still have the issue of being mavatal, his kavana, etc. B'nei, says the Mishnah Berurah, because it messes up his kavana. Therefore, says Mishnah Berurah, it's a kol shekain. They also leilich, allowed to walk and stand opposite one within the 4 amos. Keinu l'das amagin Avram v'li Rabba Sever. So Asirak Laver B'techarma is taken upon of the Isters walking by. Avaleilech B'toich Arba Amos Lamoid is Motor Afilu Lefana. V'efshadish L'akab B'makam at Chag. So says Mishnah Berurah, and these are scenarios that do get difficult. Says Mishnah Berurah B'makam at Chag. There's makam to be makel like the El Yarabah. And now we go into Sif Hey, and Sif Hey, as we mentioned, it's really the application of Sif Dalid that says Sif Hey, that if you're finished your Shmoneh before the person behind you, you're not allowed to take your 3 steps backwards. Why? Because by taking your 3 steps backwards, what happens? You're walking into the Dalan Amois of the person behind you. So it says in Mishnah Berurah, Sif Katin Yiztaz, Mispal Achayrav, V'minu Achayrav Mamish. He's not really behind you. Rak meirachik l'stadim. He's a little bit, to the side near the Shar al Rabbi Anal. Then this is going to fall into the machlekes Magen Avram El Rabbi that we just explained. Says Mishnah Berurah, it would seem that the El Rabbi is going to be mekel, and as Mishnah Berurah said before, makam atchak. Anyways, you could rely upon the El Rabbi, so there would be a bit makam to be mekel. Shalosh psiyas have got chaf umayri b'toich arba amos. Aishavu l'toich arba amos al yidei shalosh psiyas. Either the guy behind you is davening within your dalet amos, which is quite classical in I don't want to say all shuls, but many shuls, that the two tables, the 2 rows are within dalet amos, about 6 feet of each other. Or it says Mishnah Berurah, even if he isn't, but by you taking the 3 steps, you're walking in to his dalet amos. Shevsei la'achayev, it's the same thing. Shekvar hiskos sevkat chavalef v'loy nikri ba b'gvulos. So the Mishnah Berurah explains what's the chiddush over here. Maybe you would think because he started after you, therefore he is ba b'gvuloi. It's your area. So what's he doing walking into my rishos? Says Mishnah Berurah, no. Even if he's being ma'arich v'adrabah, zeh shepaseu b'achshav b'gvuloi. Says Mishnah Berurah, it's the exact opposite. You now taking the steps, it's as if you're walking into his rishos. Before we call it a day, let's just look at the Dirshu over here. Dirshu points out that 28, a very classical case. Let's say the guy is davening in the aisle, in the doorway. He's davening b'makam hamiyuad lema'avar hatzibur. He's davening in the aisle. So what's the story? So he quotes a Das Torah over here. Then you're allowed to walk by him, because that is similar to one like kever amazik as a rabbib. That you're allowed to get rid of the kever. What's he doing davening over there? We mentioned a few probably weeks ago by now how you're not supposed to davening in the doorway. This would be another classical application. If the guy is sitting in the doorway, you're allowed to walk by. But again, it concludes the Das Torah, Tziyim b'tzarech iyan. But again, that would be an area of kula. And finally, so too Rav Zalman says the same thing, that you're allowed to pass by. Mutar lahaver as a Zalman mekaymai. And he adds on, midin. Av mutar laver kenegdo mikol makal lechatchila. You should be machmer and loibe makam atzerech. And I think the famous story with Ramesha, the guy was actually standing in an aisle and whatnot. But either way, there's certainly a makam to be machmer, a makam to be mekel. We'll pick it up in Siman Kof Gimel in the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.